Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hitting the Ground Running, a panel discussion with new leadership in the arts during the pandemic era. I'm Rahul Gandhi, the Director of Operations at QDF, and I'm a new leader myself in the arts, and I'll also be your host for today's event. Today, we're looking to shed some light on some of the turnover our community has seen over the past 2 years, and to get to know some of the artistic leaders that have stepped into their roles during the pandemic. I'm tuning in from Chichage, otherwise known as Montreal, which is situated on the traditional territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, the home and meeting place of many First Nations, including the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Abenaki, and the Anishinaabe nations. As a new leader myself, I've been reflecting on what leadership means to me, and I found myself turning back to what I learned last year from director and creator Katie Wadham, when she introduced QDF to the idea of soft power in one of her daily seeds. This time last year, a year into the pandemic, Katie shared Jill Carter's notion that soft power is giving and flexible, but strong. A leading voice doesn't need to be the loudest voice. At QDF, we've been exploring what it means to have more lateral forms of power and horizontal hierarchy. Maybe we'll hear from today's leaders about what that means to them. If you want to check out Katie's daily seed about leadership, I highly recommend it, and we are dropping links in the chat right now. Great. So if we could have everybody come onto the screen. Amazing. Alrighty, thank you. Behind the scenes, we have the amazing Rebecca DeRoche. Welcome, everyone. I would like to mention that Tyrone has had some technical difficulties and may be joining us later on. I'd like to go around our virtual table for some introductions. I'll tag one of you, you'll introduce yourself, and then I'll tag another person. Sound good? Be sure to let us know your name, your pronouns, how long it's been since you stepped into your role, and also a bit of an elevator pitch about your organization. So, I'm Rahul Gandhi. My pronouns are he, him. I've been the Director of Operations for 11 and a half months now, and the Quebec Drama Federation exists to serve and uplift the English language theatre community in Quebec through the pillars of advocacy, development, and visibility. That's my little intro. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and tag Vance.
Hi, I'm Vance Gillis. I'm the Artistic and Education Director at Montreal Improv, which I've been doing for, I guess, a year and a half now. My pronouns are he, him. Our organization offers classes in programming, and now we have a venue for all sorts of different programming, and we're partnering with all sorts of different organizations. We do everything now. I'll tag Vanessa.
Hi, I want to say thank you, first of all, for being invited. I'm Vanessa. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director at ELAN, the English Language Arts Network, and I have been so for 6 weeks, so pretty new. ELAN works to support English-speaking artists across the province through advocacy, through different programs we have to do direct support to artists. You could go to our website to get a much better idea than I only have a few seconds. So, but thanks for having me. I will tag Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Gibian. My pronouns are she, her. I have been co-artistic director of Persephone Productions for like 3 months-ish. We're in a transitional period, but pandemic time. But something like 3 months. Leila, should I talk about Persephone Productions? Should we share?
Please, be my guest.
Well, Persephone Productions is a company mandated to serve emerging artists in Montreal. Oh, I'm gonna tag Leila.
Very well said, Rebecca. My name is Leila Ghaemi. My pronouns are she, her, L. And Rebecca perfectly described our mission, so I have no more to say. I'll tag Zach.
Hello, I'm Zach. I'm the AD at Infinitheatre. My pronouns he, him, and we focus on new play development, productions, developing and producing new works performed primarily in English, primarily by Quebec-based artists. We, apart from the 2 or 3 shows depending on the year, we also have reading series, multiple reading series and competitions, and workshop of other pieces as well.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Now that we have our little introductions out of the way, I want to get into it a little bit. So we're going to be doing this first little section. It's really question and answer. And the purpose of today is to get to know some of our artistic leaders a little bit more. So we've prepared a couple of questions that I'd love to ask you. We do have a lot of questions ahead of us, but if anyone in the audience has any burning questions, put them in the chat. And if time allows, we'll get to them a little bit later on. So this first question is actually for Vance. Anyone else can hop in if they have similar experience, but I wanted to ask, could you tell us about what it's like to have recently stepped into leadership positions in an organization that you've been a part of in various ways throughout the past? What can you tell us about the growth and shifts in your organization that you've observed or helped facilitate through the years?
I would say that it is exciting and also bittersweet at times, because Montreal Improv actually closed in the summer of 2020. So this is a revival of the company, which again is very exciting, that we have gotten to sort of remold things and adapt, especially with the pandemic changing the way that people were able to gather and the appetite that people had for that type of activity. But yeah, the company closed in 2020. So this is very much feeling like a brand new company. Even though, I have nothing but fond memories of the old Montreal Improv. The new company coming in, it was definitely a challenge to come back with improv, doing education and doing shows and things like that without the in-person element, because that's, prior to COVID, in terms of conversations around accessibility, it was always said, well, we can't do improv online. It's just not possible. It requires the audience. It requires all these different ingredients. And then when the pandemic hit, I was actually working in Toronto for Bad Dog Comedy Theatre, which is also an improv space. And when everything shut down, we were forced to go online, and we discovered, there are things that do actually translate. There is a way to do this. And, shame on us, not Bad Dog, but improv theaters and comedy spaces in general. Shame on us for not really pushing for it before. We could have been doing online and making, our programming accessible in that way before. We just had to, unfortunately, discover that when we were forced to. So making those shifts there, and then making those shifts here, was also figuring out, what do people have an appetite for? What do they want to do? And also, how can we make use of this power where we're reaching people with our programming that would have never been able to before? There's a lot of people that did not have access to our programming because they weren't in Montreal, and now we're welcoming them in. So, it's been a lot. It's been a lot figuring out how to manage all of these things. I would have preferred, in a perfect world, to have not taken on this role when it was a pandemic. That would have been great right before that. But I'm very proud of what has happened. It's just been very, what's the word I want to look for here? Just very challenging doing anything during the pandemic, but especially for theater, especially for performance. It's just been so tough, and everyone's been having a tough time. But I'm proud of the work that we've all done at Montreal Improv to bring it back and figure out how we can fit into the current situation.
Definitely. And it brings a smile to my face too, because I used to frequent Montreal Improv back in the day. And, as a community, everyone was saddened when it closed. And, for a while, it just felt like everything was closing during the pandemic, your favorite bar, your favorite, like so many places were affected. And so you said that you wished, you wouldn't have had to step into this role during the pandemic. And everyone wishes that, of course. Mm-hmm. At the same time, though, like, it's kind of incredible what you're doing, right? You many space, like so many places are struggling, but Montreal Improv actually opened up a new space, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did. Yeah.
And it's in St. Henry. So could you tell me a little bit about what that's been like, about creating a new space, first of all, with COVID and everything happening, but also, fostering a new community in a new part of town?
Yeah, that's been really exciting to be in a new area, getting sort of a fresh start. Like I said, we're treating this as it's a new company. I think having a new location and a new neighborhood really, really helps. It's been very exciting. I think we did not expect to get a venue as quickly as we did. I think we got very fortunate. I mean, obviously we've worked hard at all this, but there's lots of folks that have been working just as hard as we have who haven't been as lucky to sort of nab a location that works for them and that sort of thing. Yeah, where we are in St. Henry, I think is a great little spot. Dealing with a venue is not something that I have experience in any of my past careers of figuring out what do we do about this leak and what do we do about this and this and this. So just figuring out the little minutia, I think has been fun but challenging. But yeah, we are in a new space now, and it's allowed us to partner with the St. Henry Jazz Society. So they're coming in, they're making use of our space a couple days a week. So it's not just a comedy space. We're also using it for music, and we're trying to open that up for other things as well, which is nice because a lot of times with comedy or with improv, especially, you don't get a lot of overlap with other forms of the arts, unfortunately. That's just how it is. So it's nice that we get to meet people and other artists that maybe we normally wouldn't get to have in our space. And so we're, very glad to have them, but also glad to have the opportunity to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And I mean, hey, look at that, right? Even during the pandemic, creating new connections and getting in, bridging artistic communities. That's an amazing thing, honestly. And also St. Henry's great. I live there, sunny St. Henry, right? Thanks so much, Vance. I have a question now for Vanessa, actually. Firstly, welcome back to the theater community. We spoke a little bit earlier this week, and I got a bit of, the backstory there. But do you want to share with everyone a little bit about your connection, since ELAN is, sort of a satellite to the theater community? Tell us about your connection with Montreal theater.
So, I worked in the arts in Montreal and specifically in theater a long time ago. And I don't even really want to say, but it's been like 20 years. But I was the director of communications at Centaur Theater for a couple of years. And so I was, really in like doing the Wild Side Festival and the Fringe Jury and all of that stuff that you do when you're lucky enough to be in that kind of role. And I ended up moving on, and I actually left the country for a while, but I always, sorry, that's my cat. I always missed working in theater and being surrounded by that sort of creative energy and that passion. And I ended up working as a journalist and as a writer, and I've always been a writer, and I've always missed the arts. I went to work in community and worked in community development. And to me, that is almost parallel to the arts, because I've always found that the arts is strengthening community in a way. And so when the opportunity came up to work at ELAN, I had worked with ELAN before in a project. I knew Guy quite well. And it just called to me like it was time to come back to the arts, like especially after the pandemic, needing that really positive energy and that hope and that drive that I really remember from the theater community. I decided to come back, and I'm so pleased. Sorry for that. I'm so pleased to be back in the arts community. And the great thing about ELAN is, I have insight into the theater community, but also dance and writing and, the visual arts. And it's a really fantastic place to be. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And I mean, we're super happy to have you again. Of course, Montreal found a way to get you back. We spoke a little bit earlier this week, and something that you mentioned really struck me, and I wanted to ask more, and I didn't because I was saving it for now. But you mentioned community healing through arts, and your position in ELAN, you're in a really good place to start to work towards that. So I would just love to hear a little bit more about how you're in the midst of doing that, or even dreaming towards enacting those community healings through ELAN.
So I think one of the things that drew me to the job, and one of my sort of personal philosophies, I've always worked as an advocate small a advocate, whether it's in community development, whether it's in the arts, whether I've always, my mother always said if I wanted to make money, I could have been a lawyer because I have that temperament, but I always wanted to have a purpose when I got out of bed that was not about me and not about money and not about, it needed to be about serving the community at large. And I've always believed, especially in my exposure through venues or like through theater, in the power of the arts to heal. And I think the timing of after the pandemic, I see a real opportunity in, the arts community has been badly hit by the pandemic. Many other sectors have as well. I did work with seniors before I came into ELAN. And I mean, you want to talk about a sector that was badly hit by the pandemic. The impact was huge. And I saw a natural bridge between that vitality and healing power of the arts in bringing it into society at large and to other sectors that don't have exposure to that. And with ELAN, I think it's a really great opportunity to look at programs that are already in place, like the Arts Inspire grants, where we bring artists into schools, and maybe looking at how we can serve other sectors. So bring artists into senior centers, bring artists into working with youth, maybe in other ways. I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be so critical to the mental health of all of us, not just seniors and not just, particular sectors. And I think if people can reconnect with their artist inside, I mean, you don't have to be great to love painting. You don't have to be good at photography. You can take pictures of cats until if it makes you smile, it will help you heal. And I see a natural link and a natural bridge. And so that's what I want to pursue in my role, and thereby creating opportunity for artists to work and connect with new communities, and thereby contributing to what I hope will be a path towards healing for all of us.
Wow. Yeah, look, Vanessa, you're 6 weeks in, and I really can't wait to see, what happens. I can't wait to see how this continues to grow and how you grow at ELAN and,
Thanks.
the difference that art can make, honestly. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I hope everyone's on board because I'm going to need you.
We'll talk.
I have big ideas.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll set up meetings.
Okay,
It'll
great.
happen. Thank you. Now, I have a couple questions for our Persephone team, Leila and Rebecca. And please, one of you feel free to take one of these questions. Another one can take the other. Really, it's up to you, however this happens. But could you two tell us a little bit about the inception of your co-leadership model? How did it come about? And what's it like working in this way? What have you learned about working in this way?
Absolutely. Firstly, it's Leila. Just sorry,
Leila.
I hate to correct you.
No, thank you.
Rebecca, would you like to?
Sure. Maybe I can talk about how our co-artistic leadership was born, and you can talk about what you learned, and I can agree and disagree.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I think at the heart of it, I've sort of hesitated to say this, but it is true that it happened through serendipity. To make a long story short, I ran into someone in the metro, and here we are, sort of. But the heart of our work together is that Leila and I have known each other for a really long time, and I'd consider us still both. I consider myself certainly still an emerging artist, and we're two emerging artists that left Montreal in the hopes of continuing our work in theater. And both were brought back to Montreal during the pandemic, and were faced with this sort of question of if when the world is ending, you're brought back to your home, maybe your home is where you should be. I could talk about that for a long time. But then when this opportunity came about, or I got the opportunity to apply for this position, for me, it was immediate that I wanted to work with Leila. I'm a twin. Part of it is maybe that, but I think a lot of people in theater, maybe it's a generational thing, but I just really believe in collaboration. I guess it's not even really a belief. It's just it's my nature. And I remember thinking, I don't want to do this alone. I think there's a lot we can do together. So I approached Leila, who is a friend of mine, a theater friend of mine. It all goes back to Shakespeare school in Stratford. We were the nerds that were studying Shakespeare when we were 16 in the summer. And I knew that Leila, in some ways, was even more qualified than me to take on this kind of leadership role. And because she was new to the community, it felt like a perfect way to sort of, it suited the mandate of Persephone, that Leila was an emerging artist who needed help or deserved a spot in the Montreal theater community. And well, for all those reasons all put together, it was just a natural evolution. And anyways, and she said yes. So grateful for that.
And as Rebecca mentioned, we've known each other for over 15 years as peers, as collaborators, as friends, and truly, without becoming slightly cheesy, I learn from her every day as a co-artistic director. And I think just our ever-growing collaboration well, frankly, it just reminds me why I love theater to begin with, and that is the community aspect that challenges artists to keep growing and to keep learning, because I firmly believe that when you choose to be a theater artist, you're choosing to be a forever student, because you can never stop acquiring knowledge on the topic or the craft. So to have someone there to challenge my blind spots and inspire future projects, it's really humbling and exciting. And it makes us more passionate about supporting emerging artists in this community, because by allowing us to take over as co-artistic directors, Persephone fully accomplished its mission, as it's very much empowered us.
Absolutely. And co-leadership models, I mean, I'm a fan of. I'm in one right now. You saw Holly earlier. And actually my first bit of producing theater as well, I was in a co-leadership model. So I definitely believe in it. But I was wondering, Leila, like how do you see co-leadership models fitting into theater companies throughout Canada or the world, but maybe Canada just for now? Like how do you see that being a fit? What strengths sort of can you find through co-leadership in our companies right now?
That's a really good question. For me, I think it goes back to the notion of collaboration and really going back to the bare basics of what it means to be a good collaborator, and acknowledging what you have to offer the company, what you don't. I think it's actually even more important, and seek that out in other partners, and really develop a communication style that's transparent, so the company can operate as transparently as possible in achieving its goals. And I think when you have someone there to very delicately put your feet at the fire, your company is able to really back up its mission.
Wow. Yeah. Rebecca, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of discussion about like different forms of leadership in the theater community. And I think like people talk a lot about like the links between like hierarchy, and then like it gets into this philosophical discussion. But I think at the heart of it, just more brains are better than one. I think theater, especially theater, like theater leadership, to me should be in some way about erasing yourself to produce something. And I think there's something that just naturally happens in collaborations where like the goal becomes really clear and ego, I guess, dies a little bit more. So yeah, to me, it comes back to the fact that like, if you can collaborate with someone, just the chances of more creative ideas being brought forward are just there's exponential possibilities in that.
Especially, sorry to add on, but especially when they come from different walks of life, different nationality, gender, sexual orientation. I think the more we're able to create co-collaboration with various artistic beings, the stronger the material will be, because we can challenge each other in ways that we don't even recognize in our day-to-day lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm entirely in agreement. I'm a big fan. Like I said, it's always great when you feel like your partner is bringing more to the table than you, but you both feel that way. So
Yes.
You're always just like, on it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We're going to move into some more questions now, but these are going to be a little bit more like popcorn style. So I'll ask a question and we can just sort of talk about it. And if no one says anything, I'll pick on someone. And don't worry, we got loads of questions. I just want to hear your thoughts, So first of all, we all wear many hats. We do. And I made a list. surely this list has many holes, but these are just some positions that this particular group of people have held or experienced. Okay. So between the 8 of us, well, there's fewer of us here than I thought, between the 6 of us at least, we have acting, directing, photography, puppeteering, clowning, video production, improv, teaching, arts advocacy, journalism, creation, writing, arts administration, design, and surely many, many more. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on managing capacity, on balance, and on taking care of yourselves. How do you take care of yourselves?
If anyone has the secret, please step up. I mean, I think anyone who works in the arts can sort of speak to this. You just get really good at doing as much as you humanly can. And then I think, when you talk about the benefits of co-leadership, when you're in a strong co-leadership or an environment, like for me, it's my colleagues, they'll keep an eye on you and be like, maybe it's time to take a break or stop taking classes at night and working full time during the day and then getting up at 4 to write or whatever it is you're doing to fulfill all the things you want to do. But let's all be honest, it's part of the reason we're successful at what we want to do. It's because we're able to do a whole bunch of different things and we love and have passion for all the things we do. But yeah, it's a fine balance, I think, for me anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Zach, I was actually going to go to you next because I wanted to ask you, I know that you sort of spin a lot of plates, you wear a lot of hats in particular. I wanted to see what you had to say about this.
Yeah, we all wear a lot of hats, I know. And one of the things I like in this community is specifically that it encourages a lot of hats. Sometimes I think in a different kind of larger Anglophone center, like say Toronto or New York, I'd feel more need to specialize and to just be like, I'm just going to act, or I'm just going to direct, or I'm just going to teach, or whatever. And here, I feel like I am welcome and encouraged to do all of those things. So yeah, I try not to talk with people about all the different things I'm doing so that they don't question if I'm being too reckless with my scheduling. But I love teaching. It's a really important part of what I do. So I teach a lot, and in theater departments, and in that sense. And then I do think that jumps back and forth between the work as an AD, or whatever aspect we do. When we're acting, when we're directing, when we're producing, the one informs the other every day. My students are really important to keep me up to date to some degree on what's going on. They challenge me. I feel like I have a better pulse to what's like an ear to what's going on when I can talk with them and interact with them. What excites them to go see theater. Generationally, we have our collaborators that are older than us, that are younger than us. I also think of bubbles, and we're all in bubbles, whether we mean to be or not. We're all in bubbles, and not just because of COVID, but we're just like, each school is a bubble, each class is a bubble, each theater company is a bubble, our neighborhood is a bubble, the kids' school where my kids go is a bubble, and the more of those little groups that we're in, the more we're out there, the more material and we have to work with. Yeah.
So yeah, and I just want to go back actually and ask you this, because I asked everyone a question and I didn't ask you one specifically, and that's on me. That's entirely on me. But that was a little bit of my question. I wanted to ask, as an AD and as an educator, these are these different bubbles, these are these different places that you're operating, and you're working as an artist. In what ways specifically do they affect each other? Of course, there's, you hear what your students like and that sort of thing, but, how does being an AD affect the way that you teach? And how does being a teacher affect the way that you're an AD?
They're flip sides of the same coin. Like they're totally separate, but they're completely interrelated. It's like most days of the week, I'm teaching in the morning and I'm running the company in the afternoon, or I'm running the company in the morning and then in the nighttime, and then at 4 a.m. I'm talking poster design or something. I don't know, but it's but they complement one another. I think it's really important. I think it's great that some teachers are just focused on teaching, and that is where they are. That's where their primary energy is. I think it's also really important that within every theater program there are some teachers that are also out in the professional community doing work. So I've said it's okay that sometimes, some days I feel guilty if I feel like I'm not giving everyone what they deserve, but you're always just trying to check in to make sure you're being just with everyone and that you're being responsible with your time. I think leading back to your other question as well, I think there are finite hours in the day, and I think that it's knowing that we can't do everything, we can't see every show, we can't be at every place, we can't with Infinitheatre. Most of the time we have max 5-hour rehearsal days. I myself have 2 kids that are in elementary school, and I want to be able to drop them off, and I want to be able to pick them up, and I want to be able to do the day of work, and I want to be able to be with them in the evening, and I want to be able to have most of my weekends with them. So those are all things I want, and I can't always have them all, but at the same time to just say, like, we have to be more selective in the projects we take. So you have to really want to work on a project. You don't just, we can't do everything. And I think COVID time has been good for making us slow down some. I think some of that is really good for quality of work. Rehearsal models, revisiting how we spread things out. Balance is an ongoing thing that we try to have, and then we don't always have it. And when our friends can tell us to slow down, and my kids force me to. They force me to go to Saturday morning soccer, and I can't think about theaters when I'm there. So,
yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Does anyone else have any words for or any thoughts towards like balance and managing your own capacity?
I mean, I think I was sort of thinking. I was nodding a lot while Zach was talking, which means I agree. But I was also thinking a lot. Like, I always say that like the most tired I've ever been was when I was working 3 jobs trying to be an actor. And like earlier you were saying of the many jobs, Rahul, that we've worked past tense, but I think one of the, and I mean, I know you mean present tense as well. And I think that's one of the amazing things about this community, that it allows us to be present tense, many different things. It's something that I think this community could even get better at. But all that to say that like it's in the moments where I was seeking work, not just as an actor, but just in theater and trying to pay my rent, that I was the most tired. And I think because of that, I felt very grateful when I can spend my energy on what I actually want to be doing. And like, I do think this community has almost a problem with that feeling of gratitude, of that's a different topic, but I think that feeling of wanting the opportunities is what pushes me to want to work harder on Persephone. It just so happens that like that need that I still feel as an emerging artist can be fulfilled for other people through this company. So there's something to be said for like, I am offering an opportunity to someone else by the work I'm doing right now, and that's going to make their life not just a little bit happier, but I genuinely believe a little bit easier. And that fuels me to want to work harder on this opportunity that I've been given. Yeah.
I find the idea of balance to be a bit of a trap, just because to attain balance requires so much energy, and that is not sustainable. And the moment I feel that balance, the next day it's guaranteed flipped. So I think through COVID especially, just to soften to the idea that life doesn't have balance, and to really just be curious about that imbalance, if you will, and let that be a little more romanticized, because especially in the theater community, we have so many different hats we have to wear just to wear all our theater hats. So a little bit of grace. I try to offer myself a little bit of grace, because I think balance can sometimes verge being a little capitalistic. It's a scary little thing.
Yeah, it definitely can be. Well, we've heard a bit from everybody, but Vance, I do want to pick on you now that everybody else also hopped in on this. And if you don't have any words for it, that's okay. But yeah, how how are you managing with managing your personal capacity and?
I'm also wearing a lot of hats right now, but I would agree with Leila on that. It's really it can be tiring. I mean, I've done jobs in the past that I've enjoyed, but I wouldn't say that I was passionate about them. And making your passion into your job, they say that there's always a trap to it. I love it. I'm still hungry for all of it, but it requires a lot of discipline to say no to things and say, here are my boundaries. And I'm not always as good at it as I would like. But yeah, it takes a lot of energy to decide, okay, this is what I need, this is what I don't need. Because it's limitless, the amount of stuff that you could be saying yes to and putting on your plate. So how do I manage? With great effort, I manage. Yeah.
One day at a time, right? Amazing.
I want to ask you something else, Vance?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just jump in there? Because I think there's also like maybe expectations that we put on one another. And I feel like in our, and pressure and forgiveness in that sense as well, when we're just with whoever we're working with. And I know like at Infinite, we're lucky enough to have a team. Some folks are running ships by themselves, and sometimes you've got one partner, and sometimes depending on the moment in the year, we have 3 or 4 or 5 people until we're in production. And I think that everyone's passionate, I think, most of the time about what they're doing. But I think that also trying to have a culture within our team to be able to say like, hey, I need more time for this, or I need to step away. And so just the way the office even runs is a bit more, there's an open dialogue. Hey, I'm not going to be there today. So we don't all have the same square, rigid hours. We work where we can work. There's an element of trust in terms of saying, I know you're going to get it done when and also trying to speak in terms of numbers, to say this thing, we think we can do this in 4 hours, or we think it should be able to be done in 4 hours. If it starts to take 2 weeks to do this thing, something's wrong. So like, and Tristan Duame, who I work with, and she works with a bunch of different folks in the community, but she works as our production manager at Infinitheatre, and she's really great for just checking in on one another to make sure that, yes, we will all be inclined to, especially if we're passionate about it, take on a lot and always want to take on more and be troopers and champions and do it, but also to be able to just, I don't know, check in, communicate, be realistic, and know when you need to stop, or know when your colleague needs a break as well.
Yeah, and that's something that I love about artists and cultural workers, especially, is that we really have that. It's kind of like in our, it's so much more in our vocabularies now to do that, to set those expectations, to be honest about needing time and space for your energy. And I think it's just an important reminder that it's something that we should all strive to do. In our work, in our jobs, in our lives, like it's very important, and that's a great way to be able to manage capacity and balance. I wanted to ask you all a couple of personal ones, just to get to get to know all of you a little bit better. And feel free to answer one of them, all of them, 2 of them. But here they are, just a couple of quick lightning questions. What is your favorite way to spend a day off? If you have a secret talent, do you have a secret talent? And if you have, what is it? And also, what is the last TV show or movie series or book or script series that you binged? I'll go first. I have no secret talents. I've been rewatching Lost, and favorite way to spend a day off, honestly, just like not looking at my calendar. I think if I can do that one specific thing in a day, that's my favorite way to spend a day off.
I think maybe a twisted talent I have is to turn pleasure into work and work into pleasure, so that I always feel like I'm like I have this thing that I like to do, which is productive procrastination. So I'm trying to avoid one thing by doing something else that I'm really excited about. but that I also have to get done.
Mm.
But the downside of this hidden talent is that it's sick because I enjoy my work too much, I suppose, and so I'm always working even though I'm at play. I don't know. And as much as I used to like really dark and dramatic, I love that kind of epic TV film. Lately, I'm catching up. I think I'm about 10 years behind, but I'm watching The Office right now, and that's really good for me.
Nice.
Simple humans in a simple community dealing with simple things, and yet they're like beautiful to watch as they go through that.
I would say my secret talent is, well, I have convinced myself that no one can use an iCal better than I can. Rebecca can speak for my iCal. I can find any way to program anything in it, even the stuff that does not need a reminder. And I think that's a talent. And I would say, for me, I have a deep love for adult cartoons. I find adult animation, that sounds strange, but for example, like a BoJack Horseman or a Midnight Gospel genre, they really deal with very heavy and dark and hyperhuman material in a way that is softened and able to be received by audience members. And I think that's just a beautiful thing and something that I strive to do in my art. It's amazing. I'll watch a 30-minute episode of BoJack and cry because they've given me space to receive what they're depicting. And it's kind of remarkable. I really, really admire the writers of shows like that.
Yeah, I bawled at that last episode of Midnight Gospel, like bawled, like ugly cried for so long.
Rahul, same. I called my mother at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I was like, I'm sending you the clip. She's like, I'm going back to bed. I get teary-eyed actually thinking about it. It's the perfect depiction of the human condition, that episode.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a crack at this.
Yes.
Secret. Well, it might not be a secret to you anymore because you've had to watch what's going on in my house the last 10 minutes, but I am an excellent pit bull wrangler. I happen to have some very large, very rambunctious dogs. And I can deal with just about any giant creature, no matter energy level or temperament. And then binging, Zach, you won't like this if you're trying to avoid dark, but for those of you who haven't seen it, Fortitude, it's available for free on CBC Gem, and it's a co-production, ITV, and I can't remember who else, and it's set in the most northern place in the world, and it's people from different parts of the world, and the glacier that they are up there studying is starting to melt, and oh my God, watch the first 2 episodes, and if you can turn it off, you're a better human than I am, because that was it for me for like 3 days. Fortitude.
I'll bring back the how do you like to spend a day off?
Mm-hmm.
I would say not checking my email for a day. Being able to go even a couple hours without checking my email feels like a vacation. So getting to take a full day off is that's my ideal day off. And then hopefully I'm doing non-work related things that day. But yeah, being able to take a break from having to be sort of on call. That's an ideal day for me. I forget the other questions now.
Yeah, I also had if you have a secret talent, what is it? And what was the last TV or series, movies, books, scripts, anything that you binged?
Right. I'll talk about the TV one. When the pandemic hit, I stopped watching new shows because I just wanted the comfort of rewatching things. And so I ended up going down a few rabbit holes of things that I hadn't seen for a long time. And so my big one is Unsolved Mysteries, the original series from the 90s, which I just like it because it feels so out of time. Like it wouldn't be the same right now. And I actually created a new one, which doesn't feel the same at all. But it just feels sort of fun and silly, and it's sort of exactly what I need, especially when things get tough during the pandemic times. So that would be my go-to, I would say, would be Unsolved Mysteries.
Right on. Before we move on, Rebecca, do you want to?
I think I'm just trying to think of a secret talent, which is why I was like, I'll let everyone else go. I feel like it's not really like I feel like I was destined, not really, but to be a backup singer. Like if I'm alone, or even not alone, like if I'm singing in the car, I'm just like, I will back you up. I will like pick a harmony, but like I don't want to be the lead. Like I'm Michelle, you know? And like anyways. Yes. Like TV shows, I'm really into I mean, I haven't really started the new season. I'm really into documentaries. But I'm trying to steer away from like, I've watched like all the true crime documentaries, and I got to a point where like the probability of someone breaking into my house to murder me just felt high because I'd seen so many people die that I was like, I'm next. So I'm watching F1, this documentary about the like race car driving, which is clearly, I don't even know how to talk about it, just not my niche. It's so good though. Like if I'm watching TV, I need to like be punched in the face with excitement. I just want to like distract me, and it's so exciting. So that's a strong recommendation. And a day off, I think I try to like the best days off are when you're like not in town. I don't have access to like I don't have a country house. So it doesn't happen ever, but like I'd say like I'm picturing myself like out of town, so I can't even like open my laptop because like maybe I'm like in a lake.
Right.
But you didn't ask how that your question. I changed it to like utopia.
That's fine, and that is utopia. And also, the backup singer thing, that's a talent. I cannot sing, but I can hit low harmonies, and I am proud of that. And I guess that's my secret talent too.
We're just missing Beyonce.
Yeah, we're just missing Beyonce.
Great.
I wanted to pull a full 180 from where we just were, and I wanted to ask you all, as artistic leaders, how are you informing yourselves on the content and services that are relevant to the audiences that your companies serve? How do you go about bridging generational gaps and to try to stay connected with those older and younger than yourselves? And I know that's a big question. You can take a second. I can say at least at QDF, we try to consult and talk to our members as much as we can, and we have some things in the works for that. But that's where we're at.
I would say for Persephone, Rebecca and I have worked to expand the company's mandate and really redefine what it means to be emerging in the Montreal theater community. So it does not only serve actors who just came out of conservatory settings, but actors who have been in the Montreal theater community for a while and have never been given the opportunity to be a playwright or a director who wants to study lighting projection and so on and so forth. And we kind of did a big Band-Aid rip this fall and called for all types of emerging artists. If you consider yourself as one in your gut, to come meet us, audition, bring a portfolio, just have a chat. And we were really blown away by not only how many people came to these general auditions, if you will, but how it varied so much in regards to age. Rebecca, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but it was really, we saw theater artists from so many different generations, and it was really, really lovely and refreshing.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing where like there's a combination where like I think it's an interesting thing to join a company because you get fresh eyes on something. So in some ways, to answer your question, I'm like, we're the fresh blood putting a new lens on this company. So in some ways that feels not easy, but I feel like we are the new generation for this company to see differently. But at the same time, like I'm at a point in my own life where I'm like, oh my God, I'm not the new grads. Like I have no idea who those people are. Just in my, like for like the past 5 years, I'm like, I know them all. they're all my friends. And now I'm like, I don't know them. I don't have like personal connections to them. So then like as a professional person, that that starts to become a question of like, how do you connect with those people? And like the general audition setting that Leila was talking about was just so interesting for us. But I mean, I'm reiterating what Leila said, but I think for us, like expanding the just sort of vague definition of what it is to be an emerging artist, like even inside that, like, yeah, like the amount of people, I think, especially in the Montreal theater community, who have emerged and then like would like to continue emerging, or like I think there's a lot of different people that we're excited about supporting that aren't only new grads, and that feels exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I say how much I love that as like somebody who really believes so much in like you can emerge as an artist at any point in your life. You can be a mom who suddenly your kids have left and you're 55 and you want to write your first script or do the first thing, and like emerging has always been kind of a narrow thing. So yeah, I love that. Well done. I think it's great.
Thank you, Vanessa. I mean, just for a quick example, we had someone audition for us who went to Lambda, is very well trained, did a lot of film work, and then came back to Montreal and just didn't know anyone here and is emerging in this community, and really was quite transparent in needing that extra step to come. So it's been really interesting hearing everyone's different stories of how they need to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Zach?
Yeah. It's, in the case of Infinitheatre, it's been around 20 plus years. And so there's a certain audience base that has been following the company throughout that time, or building up. I think with a lot of companies, there's like the regular audience and then there's the student audience. And so that's one thing that we have in terms of trying to reach out to CEGEPs or university students, sometimes high schools. Then, I guess 50 and older, which is a crowd that is more, as people have more financial stability, more closer into retirement, that's a different kind of crowd. We're trying to target all of them, but then there's also, I think any age group or any pocket that you're trying to reach is its own effort that requires its own strategy. So like the way we have different ways of reaching different parts of our audience. We have ways of, and the programming is going to affect it too. We've got a new youth playwriting competition, The Right Stuff, and Park and Play, which is readings of short works by 12 to 18-year-olds. So then that was a new crowd that came into our midst. And then, of course, because it's younger writers, a lot of the characters are younger. So then, now we're hiring more CEGEP, recent grads from CEGEPs or theater programs because the piece is being written, the voices being represented are different. But then just in terms of cultural communities that I feel like we either access more or less, they also require their own, like, how do you, every effort you make, you're hoping that it's going to have a result. But one thing I think I've understood in the last year plus is that like, there is no form of blanket outreach that works for everyone. Everything is its own effort. So either you choose, I think maybe a thing that all of us probably, are figuring out is where's our priority this week and where's our priority today? And like, okay, I've got this long list of things, but what's at the top of that list of what I have to deal with? And then you're choosing, are we going to put our efforts into the CEGEP group? Are we putting our efforts into the seniors today? Is it, and of course, everyone in between too.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of different realities between all of our organizations. Mm-hmm. Vance, you mentioned earlier about being able to finally like confidently take improv online, and you're reaching a whole new audience that you didn't really have access to before. Do you have any thoughts about bridging generational gaps or expanding your audiences now that you're online? Like, sort of, how do you go about doing that for improv?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think our thing is a little bit different because our organization is mostly education. Like, a lot of our programming will be driven by the education piece. Mm-hmm. And then as a venue in the past, I'd say the majority of the programming was actually from outside producers. So it'd be members of the community who would come in and sort of produce their own shows. So Montreal Improv's programming was generally as broad as possible to appeal to as many people as possible. Coming out of, well, not coming out of COVID, but where we are currently now, we're still in a tough position because a lot of the folks that used to produce, they just don't have the energy. They don't have that in them to produce. We're producing most of our programming. So we're trying to come up with ways to think of specific audiences for shows, which is not something that we've ever had to do before. And reaching people online, specifically, that has been, something that's changing all the time. It's not, month to month, things are sort of changing and people's needs are changing, and the audiences that we're bringing in are changing, and the things that are working and the things that aren't working are changing. So that's been really challenging in terms of age groups specifically. We found challenges with that as soon as we went online. We found that everyone was sort of the same age group, which was skewed a little bit younger. And so part of how we dealt with that, especially for classes, was we implemented an inclusion and equity scholarship program so that we were able to bring people in from that age group that we wanted to have in our classes and on our screens and on our stage. And that's been very successful. But I think that there's still more that we can be doing to bridge the age gap. I think improv in general has generally been one demographic, and so we're trying to open it up for other folks. And it's challenging, but I think that we're successful right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm looking forward, like I said, I'm looking forward to see more and more how this grows. We do just have a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to ask Vanessa if you had any thoughts about this with ELAN, considering you already have a very wide, like a multidisciplinary approach to art service, right?
Yeah. So, sorry, I heard so many interesting different things. I forgot what the actual original question was.
Yeah, it's just, how are you informing yourselves on content and services that are...
right, of course. I think I'm in a really privileged position because, Guy Rogers set this organization up 17 years ago, and it's so well structured. We have members on the board that represent each community of artistic disciplines, and we have pretty regular, I think it's like every 6 to 8 weeks, we meet with the board, and they give me insight into what's happening in their community. As well, we have our members who are, we're constantly doing outreach with and talking to and trying to connect with, because the reality is needs change all the time, and God knows we've seen that more than ever in the last couple of years. So I recognize how lucky I am. And then as for, different sectors of the community, yeah, that's just reaching out. As Zach was saying, it's like finding them, identifying them. I have a background in communication, so it's something that I do understand, but it's an effort. It's really thinking about your audience all the time. And that's true for theater companies, but I think it's true for everybody. If you're trying to reach a sector of a community, you're trying to reach an audience. So, you have to approach it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hey, honestly, best of luck to all of us. It's an uphill battle, but we're doing it. And on that, we do need to be closing up our Serving Up Knowledge today. It is 5:30. Before we do, I would like to give everybody a chance, say 20 seconds, 30 seconds if you can, to plug or share something that's upcoming that could be external or internal within your organization. I'll tag someone and then we'll keep it moving on. And I know this is very quick, I'm sorry. Rebecca, how about you?
Our first show this season happened right during Omicron, and by happened, I mean didn't happen. So it is finally postponed. We will be doing our first show as artistic directors the first 2 weeks of September at the Siegel Center. It's a British play, Pool No Water, with our own contemporary spin, emerging actors playing emerging artists. We're very excited that it's actually happening.
Amazing.
And I'm going to tag Zach.
Thank you. We've got Mazel Tov, which was supposed to be playing in March. We pushed it ever so slightly so that we preview April 29th, opening April 30th, running till May 8th. We're lucky because we perform at Kin Experience this year, which is right downtown. It's the old Sam the Record Man building near Place des Arts. And it's a dark comedy written by Marc-André Thibault, directed by Ellen David, cast of 4 great actors, established and emerging. And it's a fun piece, so check it out. Well, fun and pointed, so it should provoke good discussion after.
And who do you tag?
Oh, I'm sorry. Vance.
Yeah, we have shows tonight and tomorrow. We're doing our programming every Friday and Saturday night, and then we also have the St. Henry Jazz Society comes in every Thursday and Sunday, and we are also doing some of our own programming on Sundays. So you can check us out at montrealimprov.com, and we have a brand new slate of classes that are starting up that also take place in St. Henry at our space there. Those are open to beginners and all sorts of different levels. So that's coming up starting the second week of April. So again, it's montrealimprov.com. That's where we have all of our classes and our shows and other things listed there. Oh, and I'll tag Vanessa.
Thank you. We have so many exciting things coming up, but I think the big one I'm going to pitch, because I think it's the one we get asked about the most, is that the ELAN schmoozers are coming back in person. And we always get people, especially people who've just arrived to Montreal, like looking to connect with people who are just graduating, who've spent the last 2 years trying to connect with our community and haven't been able to. We're planning to do an in-person one. Well, there's going to be an online one, I think, relatively soon, which is Meet the New Staff. So it'll be me and some of the other staff members who are relatively new. And then we're going to be doing an in-person one in the summer. So we're pretty excited. And I hope you can all come because, yeah, I think it's time we all get together somewhere other than in these tiny little boxes on screens. But there's other really cool stuff coming. So if you're not signed up to the newsletter, sign up because there are big announcements coming. And I don't know what I'm allowed to tell you, so I'm going to stop now.
And we also have Leila. And I know Persephone has been spoken for, but is there anything you're excited about in the next, I don't know, couple months? It's spring. What's coming up?
I am so excited to see more Montreal shows. Truly, I'm just so thrilled to be a part of this community, and what better way to get to know the community than see their art. So that is, I plug everyone on this island. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. We've been posting links in our comments to all of your organizations as you've been speaking, so the links are out there. With leadership like this, 2022 is going to be an excellent year. As for the QDF plug, remember that our membership is now pay what you can in order to be accessible. Check out our What's on Wednesdays for the inside scoop on events, auditions, jobs, and you can all be submitting to that to get it out on our socials. If you'd like some one-on-one support, as a member, you can book a session with our memberships manager, Anna Burkholder, for Membership Mondays. More details are going to be going in the chat right now. Thank you all for joining us today on Hitting the Ground Running, a panel discussion with new leadership in the arts during the pandemic era. Thank you, all of you new leaders. No imposter syndrome, you're all leaders. That's what we are. And thank you to our amazing virtual stage manager, Rebecca DeRoche, our team at QDF, and our funders, Canadian Heritage, Conseil des Arts de Montréal, and Conseil des Arts de Lettres du Québec. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.